The research station hung in the silent space above the planet Kalis. It was a quiet and cold place. The planet below was a dusty brown ball with no life on it. It had been dead for a very, very long time, but inside the station, the air was warm and full of tension. The best minds from many different species were gathered here. They were all looking at one thing. It was a giant round slab of stone that glowed with a soft blue light. They called it the progenitor map. The progenitors were the first intelligent life in the galaxy. Everyone believed this. They had built great things and then vanished. This map was their last message. It was supposed to show the way to their home, but no one could read it. For 3 years, the smartest beings in the galactic Concord had tried. They used powerful computers. They used advanced mathematics. They knew every language in the known galaxy. But the map was a mystery. It was covered in twisting lines and strange symbols that seemed to move. It was beautiful, but it was also a lock that had no key. In the main observation room, a man named Sue stared at a large screen. The screen showed a copy of the map. Sue was a brilliant astrophysicist from Korea. He was famous for his work on star formations. He believed the map was a perfect model of real space. The lines were paths between stars. The glowing dots were stars themselves. But his computers could not match the pattern to any part of the known galaxy. He had tried 1,000,000 different angles. Nothing worked. He rubbed his tired eyes. Next to him, an older man named Day sighed. Day was a linguist and a code breaker. He had solved the communication systems of a dozen alien species. He saw the map not as stars but as a language. The symbols were words. The lines were sentences. The problem, Day said to Sue, is that we are asking the wrong question. We think it is a map or a book. What if it is both? What if it is neither? Sue did not look away from his screen. The data must follow rules, Day. There are always rules. I will find the pattern. Just then, the door to the room slid open. A woman named Hannah walked in. She was the mission director. Her job was to keep everyone working together and to report their progress to the Galactic Council. She did not look happy. The Council has sent another message, Hannah said. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the stress underneath. They are losing patience. The funding for this project will run out in 6 months. If we have no answers by then, they will shut us down. They will declare the map a dead end. A silence fell over the room. 6 months felt like no time at all. We need a new approach, Hannah said. Has anyone had any new ideas? Any at all? From the back of the room near the door, a young man shifted his weight. His name was Jin. He was the only human on the team. He was not a famous scientist. He was a xenoarchaeologist. His job was to think about how ancient cultures saw the world. He understood art and stories and myths. For weeks he had felt like he did not belong here. Everyone else was so smart, so logical. They looked at numbers and codes. Jin looked at the map and saw a story. He cleared his throat. Maybe, he began, but his voice was quiet. Sue turned and looked at him. Yes, Jin? Do you have a theory? Sue was not being mean, but it was clear he did not expect much. Jin stepped forward. He pointed at the main screen. Everyone is trying to translate the map. But what if we can't translate it because we are not supposed to? What do you mean? Hannah asked. Think about a child's drawing, Jin said. A child draws a sun. It is not a perfect ball of fire. It is a circle with lines coming out. It is a symbol. It means sun, but it also means warmth and daytime and happy. The progenitors were the first. Their language would not be like ours. It would be more basic, more symbolic. Day nodded slowly. He has a point. The most ancient languages on my world were pictures, not letters. But this is too complex for simple pictures, Sue argued, pointing at the swirling, intricate design. This is advanced mathematics. I am sure of it. I am not saying it is simple, Jin said. I am saying the meaning is not in the pieces. It is in the whole thing. Look at the way the lines flow. They do not go in straight lines. They curve. They spiral. They cross over each other. It looks less like a map and more like a journey, like the path of a life. The room was quiet again. Jin's idea was strange. It was not based on data. It was based on a feeling. Hannah considered it. A journey. So you think the map shows how the progenitors traveled? Maybe, Jin said. Or maybe it shows why they traveled. A map can show you where to go. A story can tell you why you should go there. It was an interesting thought, but it was not a solution. They could not tell the Galactic Council that the map was a bedtime story. They needed coordinates. They needed a star chart. "Thank you, Jin," Hana said. She sounded tired. "It is a different way to see it. But we need something we can use. Sude, please keep working. We are running out of time." The meeting was over. Su turned back to his screens, his fingers already flying across the keyboard, inputting new commands. Day walked back to his own console, staring at the symbols with a new, thoughtful look on his face. Jin was left alone in the middle of the room. He felt a little foolish. His idea had not helped. He went to the large window that looked down into the artifact chamber. The real map sat there on its pedestal, glowing softly. It was the most beautiful and frustrating thing he had ever seen. He watched the slow, gentle pulse of its light. He thought about the people who made it. They were gone. But they left this behind. They wanted to be found. He was sure of it. So why make it so hard? The others saw a puzzle to be solved. Jin saw a hand reaching out from the past. The problem was no one knew how to reach back. He pulled out his personal data pad. On it, he started to draw. He was not a good artist. He drew a simple line. It started as a dot and then looped around in a lazy spiral. It was not anything special. It was just a doodle. But as he looked from his simple drawing to the incredibly complex map, he felt a strange connection. The progenitors were not gods. They were people. They must have started somewhere. They must have looked at their own sun and drawn a simple circle with lines. Just like every child on every world, he put his datapad away. The idea was still forming in his mind. It was crazy. It would probably get him thrown off the station. But as he left the observation room, he could not let it go. Maybe the key was not to decode the message. Maybe the key was to answer it. The mood on the station had grown heavier. The news from the Galactic Council was a dark cloud over everyone's head. 6 months. The word echoed in the quiet halls. Scientists moved a little faster. Their conversations were shorter, more tense. The air itself felt thin with pressure. Jin kept to himself. His idea from the meeting felt silly now. A journey, a story? It was not a real theory. It was a feeling. And feelings did not solve galactic mysteries. He spent his time in the archives looking at old scans of the map. He avoided the main observation room. He did not want to see the disappointed look on Su's face or the worried frown on Hana's. Su, meanwhile, was working harder than ever. He had not slept for 2 days. His eyes were red. His console was covered in empty coffee cups. He had created a new model. This one treated the map's nodes not as stars but as gravitational anomalies. He was sure he was close. The data streams flowed across his screen in rushing rivers of light and numbers. Day was taking a different path. Inspired by Jin's words, he had started looking for patterns that were not logical, but lyrical. He searched for rhythm in the symbols. He looked for repetition, like in a poem or a song. It was slow work. It felt like trying to hear a whisper in a storm. The map was so complex, so dense. Finding a pattern that was not mathematical was like trying to catch smoke with his bare hands. A week after the meeting, Hana called everyone together again. This time the room was quieter. The excitement was gone. Now there was only grim determination. "Su," Hana began. "Report." Su stood up. He looked tired but proud. "I believe I have made a breakthrough. The map is not a chart of normal space. It is a chart of subspace. The nodes are not stars but weak points, tunnels through the fabric of reality. This is why we could not match it to our star charts." He brought up a new image on the main screen. It showed the familiar progenitor map, but now it was overlaid with a shimmering, complex web of energy lines. "My model shows that by traveling to these specific points and activating a precise energy frequency, a ship could create a temporary gateway." A shortcut, a murmur went through the room. This was real. This was science. This was what they needed. Hana allowed herself a small smile. "This is excellent, Su. Can you plot a course?" "A destination?" Su's proud expression faltered just a little. "That is the next step. The model shows the network. It does not show a specific endpoint. It is like finding a highway map. We can see all the roads, but we do not know which one to take to get to the city we want." The smile faded from Hana's face. "So we know it is a network of tunnels, but we do not know where the progenitors went." "Not yet," Su said quickly, "but it is a huge step forward. We now know what we are looking at. The destination must be hidden in the symbols. That is where Day's work comes in." All eyes turned to Day. The older man sighed and stood up slowly. Sue's discovery is remarkable, Day said. It confirms the map is a functional guide. But he is correct. The destination is the key. I have been analyzing the glyphs as a poetic form. I believe they are not just labels. They are instructions. Or perhaps a warning. He changed the image on the screen. It zoomed in on a cluster of symbols that looked like intertwined vines. See this pattern? It repeats here and here, but it is changed slightly each time. It is a progression. A story of leaving, of traveling through emptiness, and then this. The screen changed to show a final lone symbol. It was a simple circle, but inside it was a complex, knot-like design. This symbol appears only once, Day said. At the very end of the largest spiral. I believe it is the destination. The home of the progenitors, but I cannot decipher it. Its meaning is closed to me. It does not relate to any concept in any known language. It is unique. The room was silent again. They were so close. They had the highway. They knew there was a final city. But they did not know its name. Hannah looked from Sue to Day. So we have the method of travel, but not the final goal. Without that final symbol, we have nothing. We cannot just pick a tunnel and hope for the best. She turned her gaze to the back of the room. Jin, you have been quiet. Does this new information give you any of your feelings? Jin felt his face grow warm. Everyone was looking at him. Sue looked curious. Day looked hopeful. Hannah looked desperate. He took a deep breath. The circle, he said, his voice a little shaky. Day said it's the destination, the home. But what if it's not a place? What if it's a state? Sue frowned. A state of what? A state of matter. A political state. No, Jin said, stepping forward. He pointed at the circle on the screen. A state of being. You said it yourself, Day. The story is about leaving and traveling through emptiness. What comes after a long journey? What is the point of a long, hard road? He looked around the room. No one had an answer. You arrive, Jin said softly. You find a new home. You are safe. You are happy. He looked back at the symbol. What if that symbol doesn't mean planet or star? What if it means home, or peace, or the end of the search? The idea hung in the air. It was so human, so simple. Sue was the first to break the silence. Jin, that is a beautiful thought. But we cannot input happy into a navigation computer. A ship needs coordinates, a direction, a location in space, not a feeling. I know, Jin said, his shoulders slumping. I know that. But, Day interrupted, his eyes locked on Jin. What if he is right about the nature of the message? What if we are not meant to just read it? What if we are meant to complete it? Hannah crossed her arms. Complete it? How? I do not know, Day admitted. The progenitors left this for someone to find. They wanted to be found. But they did not want to be found by just anyone. They wanted to be found by someone who understood. Not someone who could just solve the math, but someone who understood the why. Jin's heart started to beat faster. Day was saying the very thing he had been thinking. He remembered his doodle on his datapad. The simple spiral. What if, Jin said, the crazy idea from before now feeling less crazy and more urgent. What if the map is not finished? Sue laughed, a short, tired sound. Not finished? It is the most complex object we have ever found. Not like that, Jin said, his words coming out in a rush. What if it is a conversation? When a person tells you a story, you nod. You show you understand. You add your own little part. What if the map is waiting for that? For a nod? For a sign that we get it? He looked at Hannah, his eyes pleading. What if we need to add something to the map? Not to damage it, but to answer it, to show we understand the language it's speaking, the language of journeys and stories. The room was utterly still. The idea was so foreign, so against all the rules of science and archaeology. You do not draw on a priceless masterpiece. Hannah stared at him. Add something? Jin, you are talking about tampering with the most important artifact in the galaxy. It is unthinkable. It is a crime. I know, Jin whispered. It is also, Day said slowly, the only idea we have left that does not end in a dead end. The meeting ended without a decision. Hannah could not approve such a wild plan. She told Sue and Day to continue their work. She told Jin to write up his thoughts in a formal report. But later that night, Jin stood once more before the large window, looking down at the glowing map. The station was quiet. Everyone was asleep. He thought about the progenitors. He imagined them looking at the stars, drawing their first simple maps. He imagined their long, lonely journey. They wanted someone to know their story. They did not want a student. They wanted a friend. He knew what he had to do. It was wrong. It would probably get him arrested and sent away forever. But if he was right, it was the only way. He would not touch the real map. That felt like a step too far. But the main computer held a perfect quantum-level copy of it. Every scan, every measurement. It was what everyone used for their research. He would add his answer there, to the copy. If nothing happened, no one would ever know. It would be his secret. He walked to the main console. His hands were shaking. He typed in his security code. The system glowed to life. The beautiful, swirling map appeared in the air before him. He took a deep breath. He did not try to draw a star or a planet. He did not try to write a word. He thought about the end of a journey. He thought about home, and with a trembling finger he reached out into the holographic light. He drew a single, simple, smiling sun face right in the center of the ancient, mysterious map. The holographic sun face hung in the air, a clumsy, childlike drawing superimposed over the progenitor's masterpiece. For a long second, nothing happened. The only sound was the hum of the station's life support and the frantic beating of Jin's own heart. He stared at his work. The smiling face looked back at him, stupid and out of place. A wave of cold shame washed over him. What had he done? This was not a brilliant insight. This was vandalism. He had defiled the greatest discovery in history because of a feeling. He felt sick. He moved quickly, his fingers darting over the console. He entered the command to delete the alteration, to restore the map to its original state. His hand was shaking so hard he mistyped the first time. Command canceled. The voice from the computer was calm and flat. Jin froze. He had not canceled anything. He tried again, pressing the keys harder. Command canceled. Unauthorized modification in progress. A soft, chime-like sound began to echo in the room. It was not an alarm. It was a gentle, questioning tone. The holographic map in front of him flickered. The smiling sun face glowed brighter, its simple yellow light becoming warm and intense like real sunlight. Then, the ancient map began to move. It was not a flicker or a glitch. It was a deliberate, beautiful transformation. The complex, swirling lines that had baffled the galaxy's greatest minds began to unwind. They shifted and flowed like liquid light, reorienting themselves. The spirals that once seemed random now curved gracefully, their arcs bending to touch the edges of Jin's simple drawing. The nodes, which Sue thought were gravitational points, pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light, all focusing on the smiling sun. The map was redrawing itself. And at the center of it all was Jin's doodle. The gentle chime was now a clear, melodic note that filled the room. A light on Hana's console in her quarters, linked to the main lab, switched from green to a brilliant, pulsing gold. It was the Priority 1 alert, reserved for a catastrophic failure or a world-changing discovery. Jin could only watch, his mouth open, his body paralyzed with a mixture of terror and awe. Down the hall, Hana was jolted from a shallow sleep by the light and the soft, insistent melody from her wall panel. Her heart leaped into her throat. A breach, a system failure? She threw on her uniform and ran out the door, her mind racing through emergency protocols. At the same time, the chime woke Sue, who had finally fallen asleep at his desk, his head resting on a keyboard. He blinked, confused. Then he saw the alert on his own screen. Main lab anomaly. He was on his feet and running in an instant. Day was already in the corridor, his robe hastily tied. He had been unable to sleep, his mind turning over Jin's words. Complete the conversation. When he heard the chime, a wild, impossible hope flared in his chest. The three of them arrived at the lab door at the same time. It was locked. Override. Hana, authorization 7 Gamma. Hana barked at the door panel. The door slid open. The sight that greeted them was beyond anything they could have imagined. The main lab was filled with a warm golden light. The holographic map was alive, its lines flowing and settling into a new, breathtakingly simple pattern. A single, elegant spiral now swept across the projection, and at its heart, glowing like a tiny star, was a child's drawing of a smiling sun. And standing frozen before it, his face pale with shock, was Jin. Sue was the first to find his voice. What is this? He stepped forward, his eyes wide, staring at the transformed map. "What did you do?" The last part was not a question, but an accusation. He turned to Jin, his expression a storm of confusion and anger. Hana's professional calm shattered. "Jin, explain yourself immediately." Is this a joke, a hack? She strode to the main console, her fingers flying across the screen trying to access the system logs. The core files have been altered. The original data it's integrated. I can't separate it. Day did not look at the console or at Jin. He only had eyes for the map. He walked slowly towards the hologram, his hand raised as if to touch the light. He did not see vandalism. He saw beauty. He saw understanding. "It worked," Day whispered, his voice full of wonder. "By the stars, he was right, right?" Sue spun around, his voice rising. "Right to destroy our only copy of the map? He has ruined everything. We were so close." "He has not ruined it," Day said, his eyes still fixed on the smiling sun. "He has unlocked it. Look, Sue. Really look." Sue forced himself to look at the map, not as a corrupted file, but as a new image. His analytical mind, trained to see patterns, took over despite his anger. The new spiral was not random. It was a perfect logarithmic curve, a shape found in nature across the galaxy, and it started at the edge of the projection and ended at the sun. "The spiral," Sue murmured, his anger momentarily replaced by fascination. "It's a path." "A clear single path. Not just a path," Hana said, her voice tight. She had pulled up a navigation model on a secondary screen. "A course. The computer is calculating it now. The spiral maps directly to a spatial coordinate. A real one." She looked up, her face a mask of disbelief. "It's pointing to the Kyrios anomaly." The Kyrios anomaly was a well-known feature in a nearby sector. It was a gravitational void, a place where sensors went dark and navigation was impossible. Every species marked it as a no-travel zone. A dead end, a place to avoid, but that is nowhere, Sue said, confused. There is nothing there. It is empty space. Perhaps, Day said, finally turning away from the map to look at them. Or perhaps our sensors cannot see what is there because it is not a natural phenomenon. Perhaps it is a door. And Jin, he looked at the young man who still hadn't moved. Jin just found the keyhole. All eyes were on Jin again. The weight of their gazes finally broke his paralysis. He took a shaky breath. I only drew a picture, he stammered. I thought about what the end of a journey would feel like. I thought about home. So I drew the sun from my home. From Earth. I drew it smiling because finding a new home would be a happy thing. He looked at the glowing, smiling face at the center of the ancient map. I thought if they told a story about a long journey, they would want to know that we understood the feeling, that we would be happy to find them too. Hana looked from Jin's terrified face to the beautiful, transformed map. The evidence was right in front of her. The impossible had happened. The human, with his simple, illogical idea, had succeeded where all their logic and science had failed. The anger drained from her, replaced by a staggering sense of revelation. She walked over to Jin and placed a hand on his shoulder. He flinched, expecting to be arrested. You, she said, her voice soft with amazement. You answered the phone. A slow smile spread across Day's face. Yes, that is exactly what he did. They were not waiting for a decoder. They were waiting for a friend. Sue was still staring at the coordinates for the Kyrios anomaly. His entire world of rules and data had been turned upside down. He looked at Jin, not with anger now, but with a new, profound respect. The human had not broken the puzzle. He had solved it by changing the game. He did not decode the map, Sue said quietly. He communicated with it. The map glowed steadily before them, its new form clear and purposeful. The journey was over. The path was set. The progenitors had left a message in a bottle, and after 1 billion years a human had not just found it. He had written back. The station was in an uproar, but a quiet, focused one. The news spread from the main lab like a shockwave. The map was solved. The human had solved it, not by math, but by drawing a picture. No one quite believed it until they saw the new, simple spiral for themselves. Hana was at the center of the storm. Her communicator buzzed constantly with requests from the Galactic Council. She ignored them for now. She stood with Sue Day and a very nervous Jin on the bridge of the station's primary scout ship, the Pathfinder. On the main view screen, the transformed star map glowed. The single, elegant spiral ended at the smiling sun, which now served as a perfect navigational marker. "Are the coordinates locked?" Hana asked, her voice calm but firm. Sue, working at the navigation console, nodded. His fingers moved with a new kind of energy. "Yes, the course is plotted. It leads directly into the heart of the Kyrios anomaly." He looked back at Jin. The sun face gives us a precise entry vector. It is not just a symbol. It is an alignment guide." Day watched the screen with a look of deep contentment. It makes perfect sense. The final test was not intellectual. It was emotional. They wanted to know if we were the kind of people who would understand a smile. Jin said nothing. He still felt like he was dreaming. One moment he was a criminal. The next he was being ushered onto the bridge like a hero. He kept expecting someone to change their mind. "Hana," a voice came over the comm. It was the station's chief security officer. "The council is demanding an explanation. They are calling Jin's action unprecedented tampering. They are ordering us to stand down." Hana's face hardened. She switched the comm to a private channel. "Tell the council we are following a new verified navigational course derived from the artifact. We are proceeding with the mission. Any objections can be filed formally." She switched the comm off. She looked at her team. "The council is afraid of what we don't understand. But we are about to understand it. Prepare for launch." The Pathfinder detached from the station with a soft thud. Its engines glowed blue as it pushed away from the safe known space of the research outpost. Behind them, the giant station grew smaller, a tiny island of light in the vast black ocean. The journey to the edge of the Kyrios anomaly took 2 days. As they traveled, the mood on the ship was a mix of tension and excitement. Sue and his team ran constant checks on the ship's systems. Day studied the new map, looking for any other hidden meanings. Jin mostly stayed in his quarters, too anxious to be around everyone. Hana found him there on the second day, staring at a blank wall. "Are you all right?" she asked. Jin looked up. "I don't know. What if it was a mistake? What if we get there and there's nothing? Or something bad? Then we will have learned something," Hana said simply. "But I do not think that will happen. You opened a door that was closed for 1 billion years, Jin. I have to believe there is something wonderful on the other side." Finally, the Pathfinder arrived. On the view screen, the Kyrios anomaly looked like nothing. It was a patch of space that was emptier than empty. Stars were visible around its edges, but in the center, there was only a profound darkness. No nebulae, no distant galaxies. It was a hole in the universe. "All sensors are offline in there," Sue reported from his station. "Navigation fails. Every probe we have ever sent in has never come back. It is a place of nothing, or a place of something our sensors cannot see," Day corrected gently. Hana took a deep breath. "The course is set. The alignment from Jin's symbol is confirmed. Take us in." Sue pressed a final button. The Pathfinder's engine surged and the ship moved forward, heading straight for the emptiness. The moment they crossed the threshold, the view screen went completely black. Not the black of space, but a solid absolute black. The hum of the ship's engines faded to a whisper. For a terrifying moment, Jin thought they had been destroyed, that this was what death felt like. Then, light. It started as a single pinprick ahead of them, the same warm golden color as the smiling sun on the map. It grew rapidly, rushing towards them until it enveloped the entire ship. The view screen was now filled with a soft glowing light. The light cleared. They were no longer in empty space. The Pathfinder was floating gently above a world of impossible beauty. A single gentle sun, looking remarkably like Jin's drawing, shone in a sky of soft violet. Below them was a planet covered in lush green forests and calm blue oceans. There were no cities, no signs of industry, but there was life. They could feel it. It's a garden," Jin whispered, his face pressed against the view screen. "Scanning," Sue said, his voice full of awe. "The atmosphere is perfect. The water is pure. The life signs, they are simple. Plants and animals, but no intelligent life. No signals, no structures." Day smiled, a tear tracing a path down his wrinkled cheek. "Of course there are no structures. They did not build cities. They built a home. This is it. This is the end of the journey." Hana looked at the peaceful world below. "They did not want us to find their technology, or their weapons, or their history. They wanted us to find this, a place to be safe, a place to be happy." The truth settled over the bridge. The progenitors were not hiding a treasure of science. They were hiding a gift. A sanctuary. A second chance for any species wise enough to find it. A species that understood that the most important thing was not the journey, but the reason for it. A place to call home. The map was not a set of instructions to a museum of their greatness. It was an invitation to their backyard. Jin looked at the smiling sun in the alien sky, and then back at the image of his doodle, still on the navigational screen. He had drawn a feeling, and the universe had answered with a place where that feeling lived. He hadn't just decoded a map. He had passed a test, and the test was for humanity itself. The Pathfinder hung in orbit around the green and blue world. No one on the bridge spoke for a long time. They just watched the planet turn slowly below them. It was perfect. It was peaceful. It was the answer to a question the galaxy had forgotten how to ask. Sue finally broke the silence. His voice was full of wonder. The energy readings are stable, perfectly stable. There are no storms, no toxic areas. It is like a park. A giant world-sized park. Day nodded, his eyes still fixed on the view screen. A legacy. They used all their knowledge not for conquest but for creation. They made a sanctuary, and then they left a map to find it for those who would appreciate it. Hana sat in the captain's chair, a feeling of deep calm settling over her. The frantic pressure from the council was gone. Here, in this quiet corner of the universe, it did not matter. They were not showing off, she said softly. They were sharing. They wanted someone else to have what they had. Jin felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It had not been a mistake. His silly drawing had led them here, to this place of incredible beauty. He thought of the crowded, noisy cities on Earth. He thought of the busy, stressed-out research station. This world was the opposite of all that. It was quiet. It was simple. What do we do now? Jin asked. Hana looked at him. We follow the protocol. We send down probes. We make sure it is as safe as it looks. And then, she allowed herself a small smile. Then we go down there. The probes confirmed everything. The air was clean and sweet. The water was pure. The plants were not poisonous. The animals were small and gentle, showing no fear of the strange machines. The world was ready for them. A small landing shuttle was prepared. Hana, Sue, Day, and Jin climbed inside. The ride down was smooth and quiet. When the shuttle doors opened, the smell that washed over them was amazing. It was the smell of damp earth, of flowers, of clean air. It was a smell none of them had ever known, but it felt like coming home. They stepped out onto the soft grass. The violet sky was clear, and the friendly sun warmed their faces. They stood in a meadow by a calm, clear lake. In the distance, there were gentle hills covered in trees. Sue knelt down and touched the soil. It is real, he whispered. Day walked to the edge of the lake and looked at his reflection in the water. He saw an old man who had spent his life studying dead languages. Now he was standing in a place that needed no language. It just was. Hana closed her eyes and breathed deeply. For the first time in years, she felt no stress. No deadlines. No reports. Just peace. Jin walked a little way from the others. He found a flat, sun-warmed rock by the lake and sat down. He looked at the world around him. This was what the progenitors had wanted them to find. Not a weapon, not a power source. A place to be happy. He thought about the map. He thought about the long, complicated journey it showed. The journey ended here. In this quiet, beautiful place, the progenitors had traveled a long, hard road to get here. They wanted to make sure that anyone who followed them understood why. They did not want visitors who only cared about the trip. They wanted visitors who cared about the destination. His doodle, the smiling sun, was a way of saying, I understand. The goal is to be happy, to be safe. And the map had accepted his answer. A soft chime came from Hana's communicator. It was a message from the station, relaying a frantic communication from the Galactic Council. The Council is demanding a full report, the message said. They are declaring the planet under conquered jurisdiction. They are sending a science fleet. Hana read the message and then looked at the peaceful lake, the green trees, the gentle sun. She looked at her friends. Sue was smiling as he examined a strange, beautiful flower. Day was sitting on the grass, just watching the clouds. Jin was sitting by the water, looking more at peace than she had ever seen him. She knew what the council would do. They would send bureaucrats and engineers. They would build labs and housing blocks. They would study and catalog and change things. They would turn this sanctuary into just another project. She made a decision. She typed a short message back to the station. Transmission error. Signal lost due to anomaly interference. We'll re-establish contact when possible. She then turned off her communicator. Sue looked up at her. What did you do? I bought us some time, Hannah said. The council sees a new territory to claim. They do not see what this place is. Not yet. Day nodded in agreement. This place is a gift. It should not be owned. It should be shared. But only with those who understand. They all looked at Jin. He was the one who had understood first. Jin stood up and walked back to them. We have to be careful, he said. We can't keep it a secret forever. But we can't let them ruin it either. We won't, Hannah said. We will make the report, but we will tell the true story. We will tell them about the test. We will tell them that the map was a lock and the key was not a number but a feeling. We will tell them that this world is not a prize to be won, it is a home to be cared for. They spent the rest of the day exploring the meadow and the forest edge. They did not take many samples. They did not set up equipment. They just walked. They talked. They enjoyed the profound quiet and the incredible beauty. As the gentle sun began to set, painting the violet sky with shades of orange and pink, they gathered back at the shuttle. They were not the same people who had left the station. So the man of logic had found wonder. Day, the scholar of the past, had found a living future. Hannah, the director, had found a purpose bigger than any mission. And Jin, the young man who felt he did not belong, had found where he belonged. He had shown that humanity, for all its flaws, had something unique to offer the galaxy. Not just strength or intelligence, but a heart. The ability to see a story in the stars and to answer it with a smile. They boarded the shuttle and lifted off. As they rose into the sky, they took one last look at the peaceful world below. It was safe for now. They would protect its secret until the galaxy was ready to understand. The progenitors were gone, but their message had been received. After 1 billion years, a human had finally written back, and the conversation was just beginning.